button. Green means you're good to go and you can speak.
Good evening, everyone. I call the meeting of the Water Commission for Tuesday, May 25th to order at 6 p.m. All are present at the meeting, so please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're to item number 4, citizen comment period, and there are no citizens signed up for comments. So moving on to item 5. The first number on item 5A is approval for the minutes for April 27th. Does anybody have any corrections to the minutes on the left?
Negative. No.
Right? Okay, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the meetings from May 20th, excuse me, the April 27th meeting.
We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor to approve the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. All right, moving right along to item 5B, discussions, reports, and updates. Before we get into that, actually, I'd like to point out to everybody, I'm not sure if everybody's familiar, we have Mayor Erickson, new mayor, in here as our officio today. So, hello, Mr. Mayor, anything you'd like to start off with to the Water Commission?
No, sir. I'm just happy to be here. It's very nice to meet you all. I'm looking forward to working with you. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. All right, moving on to 5B1, Water Manager Monthly Activity Report.
Good evening. In April, the Edwards, we pumped out 6.73 acre feet for the year, 1.88, and available acre feet available from the Edwards is 624.45. Trinity well usage was 93.67 for the month. For the year, 170.66. We did 6 distribution samples, 6 came back good. Raw water samples, we did 5, 2 passed, 3 failed. Chlorine residuals are holding steady for the month and in high ranges. Meters read, 1,684. Work orders, we've had 154, 21 locates, and 153 active customer leaks. That's all I have to report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Steinmetz. Any questions, starting on the right? On the left?
On the raw sample Failures, what does that signify?
We have to do raw samples twice twice a month for the well 9 and 10 wells. Raw sample, when they come back, we just basically test for total coliform. Well 10 keeps passing pretty much all the time, and we have a little bit of issue with well 9. We're trying to get it back up and running. It's totally offline right now. Until we get the good samples out of it, we'll keep it offline.
Is that the reason for the High Trinity and Lower Edwards, or are we doing that? Is that a?
We're just trying to use up, keep Edwards a good amount in Edwards to make sure that we have plenty for the summer, and then once it gets closer to the end of the year, we'll start using more Edwards, but that's just to save Edwards for whenever we get hotter months.
Okay. Any more questions on the left? Go ahead, sir. Yep.
We don't have more later as we get into the agenda, but I had one just curiosity. We have unaccounted for water. And I
Yes.
thought with the new meter system, that number would come down substantially.
Well, with a new meter system, it's going to show all the water use that's going through. And unaccounted for it is pretty much like a water leak that you can't find, that just kind of sinks straight down, just leaks in general that we can't locate or identify. That's not being metered. It goes through the well meters and we get a total pumpage for the month, but after that, and it goes into the distribution system, I mean, we could have a leak somewhere, or there's a service from the main to the meter that might have a leak, and it just never shows up.
That's, looks like for this year, we're still losing well, at least 8% or a fair amount of water.
I think we've actually looked at that before about those water loss rates, and I thought they were reasonable based on some data that we had before. We asked this question probably 6 or 7 months ago. Does anybody remember exactly? We've had a lot of turnover. Can we remember that information?
Well, the previous water manager was comfortable with the number. I think when they're up in the 10, 11, 12% range, they're starting to be a little bit high, but he was pretty comfortable with the 5 to 8%, given that it's a small system. Other data I've seen from other systems, to me, that is a little bit high. But it's not, some of it could be lost. Some of it is also just the fact that it's different metering, so there's going to be some error anyway in the way that it's measured. But that should be low. Now, in the past, the percentages tend to be high on lower usage months. Just, the way the numbers work out. But we have been watching it for a year just to see what the trends are, and they bounce up and down. But I think they're a little higher than they were 2 years ago, but not by a lot.
If it's okay, I would like to, the question did pop up in my head afterwards. I'm usually keying into the leak adjustments, and when I heard the 153 active customer leaks, that seemed really high to me, and maybe that's been the norm compared to the leak adjustments that we normally get. Maybe I don't understand the active customer leaks.
Well, the AMI system measures basically it reads your trends throughout your the day and night and months, and say if you're testing your sprinklers, it might show that you're having a leak and it'll alert that person. So I'm getting that active leaks off of the AMI system. It might not be a leak; it just might be a glitch. So somebody using more water, going out and watering their garden with a hose, it's going to detect that's abnormal. So that's what it's off of.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions for the water manager? Thank you, Mr. Steinmetz. We're going to keep moving along here to item B2, which is the FM 2252 wastewater project. And I'm not sure who exactly is going to be briefing that. Is that the water manager or the, go ahead, ma'am.
Tonight, we have our city engineer here who is going to talk to y'all about our new wastewater system. And so I will turn the program over to our city engineer. Just step up here and we'll turn your mic on.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Sam Johnson. I'm with Tri-Hydro, the city engineer. We put together a little slideshow to kind of show where we're at with the different projects in the system, and as far as the water and wastewater. So on this one, this is your sewer system. These are the sewer improvements that we have identified in the system. And currently we're on this light green is under construction. Chromex is the contractor putting that line in, and I believe we're like 60 days out from completion. And so, in the purpose of this infrastructure going kind of behind these lots, and I understand this is like the high growth area, projected high growth area, we're trying to get out of this intersection. TxDOT is constantly widening the right of way and things of that nature, so we want to make sure we're not dealing with this intersection at this point. So that's the route for this infrastructure here. So this location is where the holding tank is going to be, because this system is going to be a pumping hall in the interim. And this is kind of like a blow up of that area. And this is where the pumping hall will discharge at the CCMA plant. Now we're switching to water. Like I just mentioned, this is a high growth area. So we identified a project, a water main along the 2252 corridor that's going to accommodate that growth as well. So we know that once the sewer, they start coming in with sewer, they're going to want water as well. So we have a projected project here. I believe it's a 12-inch main along this area. We also have, there's also an improvement here as well. But I think this is going to be the hot spot for the system. So we got to make sure we design this accordingly and get this infrastructure in. As far as the service agreements, we put together this document to kind of help streamline that process. I believe before it was set up individually, so you have a water service connection document, and then you have a wastewater service connection document. So what we attempted to combine them. We tried to put as much information in there to make it easier for people to calculate the LUEs. So you can kind of see, like, we have the meter size and how many what's the LUE ratio. We put the impact fee on this document for the water. Next slide is wastewater. So we kind of put what are the parameters to determine the LUE for wastewater. So all that information is on this form, so it should make it easier for when people come in for service, they can just fill out this form and quickly get all the administrative work out the way and move on with building the project and connecting to the system. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We'll go ahead and go through questions, starting off on the left, please.
So if we can go back to, actually I go way back, but, yeah, let's just go back to the first slide where you show the, so we have one wastewater line south of Nacogdoches, then there is a line going down Nacogdoches, is that correct?
Yeah, make sure I understand your question. So the light green line is the line that's going in, and you've got NACO Loop there, where there's a line going in. And at the corner there, where it makes the bend, is where we're putting our holding tank. Was that your?
No, but you've got some red in there and some,
Okay,
how's everything gonna hook up if,
okay. So we're building the light green line at this time.
okay, can you show me that? Because I'm confused with the green line just north of there.
Yeah, so it's this infrastructure here.
Yeah, but then what's the green line represent?
The green line is the line that's presently being constructed.
Correct, and then, but there's a line north of there that's also green. Yeah, there's a little piece there, and is that a different shade of green, or?
Yes, sir. These are mains that will tie into this main infrastructure. This, you kind of got to look at it like this is the backbone of the system in this
Okay.
area. So once this infrastructure is in, then we can start building this infrastructure to tie in. So
Okay, then
it's
where's your holding tank, or,
right here?
I'm sorry, I missed, right there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's gonna be how many gallons?
It's about 20,000 gallons, approximately 20,000 gallons.
Okay,
The lines you're talking about, if you'll notice the letter, the letter with the circle with the letter in it and an arrow pointing to that. And on the left, you've got a table there with the approximate length there. So as we're putting in this main line, we're starting to begin getting calls that somebody wants to be part of the system, but we're not constructing a line in front of their property. So we're looking at that, and that was, the initial plan was to build that backbone through the system to get the project started where the critical lines needed to be. And then each of these lines will be funded by the developers as they need service. The impact fee that we'll collect from the city will defease that cost, but initially we'll have a developer agreement with the developer to build that line. They'll bear in that cost, but then have a reimbursement agreement that they'll get paid back over time. But so you'll see the lines A through G there that are future expansions of where we're getting service. We've probably got about 7 or 8 property owners. Most are along the green line that are beginning to look at development, having discussions with the city about density, size, their site plan, different plating, those kind of things. So we are getting more development in this area, or interest in development, but we are starting to get a few more that are not on the line but are adjacent to it. And so the purpose tonight was just to tell you that we're working with each property owner individually. Sewer service is obviously new to development here in Garden Ridge. And this is a pressure sewer system where we have a smaller line and each customer is going to have a grinder station. So that whole concept is a little new to a lot of engineers and developers too, and explain to them how it's going to work, what they need to have, and then obviously the city's going through upgrades to the land development code for the city, and so they have questions about that as well. But as it relates to water and wastewater, yeah, we're working with each one individually, and so that people have access to the wastewater service in this area, and then working with them and what their schedule for service, when they need it, and we don't have any that are imminent right now, but so it will probably be several months before we would have a customer having gone through the development process, built any facilities, and actually needs sewer service. So we expect that maybe early next year.
okay, thank you. And we did have a briefing previously on the pump and grind system and the pressurized line, but unfortunately, we have two new members who weren't privy to that briefing, but that was interesting. Then, can you flip, and thank you, that answers my questions there, but can we flip then over to the water distribution? Yes, and you have some red lines there and some, can you go over the color scheme and what they represent? Your
So these
blue
are
and
the
your
var-
red and your,
These are the various pipe sizes in the system.
okay,
So the red is, I believe that's 6-inch. So green, 8-inch, the purple is 12-inch, so on and so forth. So that's all that's the.
Okay,
the
thank you.
different sizes in the system.
and then I saw another, I can't find it. I thank you for this is helpful, thank you very much.
Not a problem.
There was another sheet in our minutes on the contracts, is that for the wastewater, for the haulers, for this system initially? Somewhere I saw that. I don't know if that's part of y'all's.
So, yes, we did take bids from the pump and haul people. Talbert Hauler Carriers was the apparent low bidder, and we've been talking with them, negotiating with them. We haven't executed a contract with them. We have a bid, and we've been talking with them about service, but we're not going to have that need for service for many months. So, but we're working with them, and we'll eventually, the city will sign a contract with them. They'll be on an on-call basis for, the contract was for 3 years, I believe, and then with another 3-year renewal period. I think the slide that we had in here was just where the location is of the pump and haul tank. And then the city has an agreement with the red star there is the Cibolo Creek Municipal Authority plant. And that will be the ultimate destination of the sewage that's
Eventually, there'll be
city
a
involved.
line constructed, correct?
Pardon?
Eventually, there'll be a line constructed from where your holding tank is to this, to the
The city
Cibolo.
the city has a number of options, and they're being studied, but we're not, those discussions are ongoing, and it wouldn't be privy to
Okay.
to do that in an open session here, but we are looking at a number of options and working to get a permanent solution. But for now, we're on pump and haul, and then that's what we have. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
all right.
Pat, excuse me, can you go into a little bit more detail concerning the LUEs and on these forms, as well as when the grinder pump, the different types, when those different sizes might be necessary? That may be helpful.
All right. So as Sam's talked about, these forms that we're using with developers as we talk about them. So y'all are very familiar with the water system, and as you have different size meters, depending on what the need of the customer is. Whether a residential, where we're settling on 3/4 inch meter, and that equates to 1 LUE, 1 living unit equivalent. As we get this area on 2252, very much of it is going to be non-residential, commercial or business type settings, and so they'll probably be not 1 LUE, maybe more, and so again, on the water side, the wastewater is going to be dependent on the water side and what size water meter they have for their water needs. And there are some rules of thumb that are used on a preliminary basis. So say you had a commercial building. One of the equivalents is about, for every 3,000 square foot of building, it's 1 LUE. But and that's the table here up on the upper left there, some equivalents. But ultimately, we'll use that on a preliminary basis to help them size their facilities. but ultimately we'll be doing a fixture count where we'll count the number of sinks, hose bibs, dishwashers, machines, whatever, toilets, and how much water will be used, and that will be what we'll use on an ultimate basis to calculate that LUE size. But as it relates to wastewater, we're using that, and then each water meter would then have a grinder pump if they're connecting for wastewater service. And those grinder pumps, we have a single pump, and then a duplex pump. If it's a commercial operation, a non-residential structure will require a duplex pump. One pump to run, one is a backup, so they have continuous service. Or if they're very large, it can be a quadruplex as shown up there, which would be 4 pumps if it was something very, very large or heavy wastewater user. So we have taken bids from the grinder pump manufacturer, and these are install costs. And but again, helping the developer, the engineer, their planners on what those costs would be and how they and how that fits in. And it keys all, again, back to what size water, how much water they're using. And so as we're developing this information sheet and these forms, being able to talk about that with each customer and educate them on what they need and what their specifics to their tract. And the one we're talking about right now is a commercial development kind of on the north on Naco Loop, but on the let's see, A33 up there. You can see A.
Yeah, 833.
I was looking for the light. Okay, so it's right at the.
Yeah, it's like 833, 835, that area.
Okay, so it's a commercial development, and they're talking about a phased development with multiple commercial buildings on it. And so, again, each of those buildings will have a water meter and then a grinder pump station with it that will all pump and each be customers. But sizing those and how much flow they need and which direction they're pumping and all, trying to educate the developer and the engineers on what they need. So, and what the costs are of what they'll be paying the city. So, paying to get that installed. So, all right. Okay, good questions. Anybody else?
On the right?
Nancy, thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
I do have just a couple of questions just for my clarification. When I first saw this on the water and wastewater, the meter sizes, I've seen 8-inch and 6-inch and 4-inch, and that was kind of surprising to me. And I realized those are probably just on the spreadsheet there. Do you expect a lot of the businesses coming in needing 8-inch meter sizes and stuff? I didn't think so.
No, it's very, very large, but just to show them. But I think right now we have the biggest in the city are some 2-inch meters.
Okay, and that's what you expect for the commercial, 2-3-inch maybe?
Yeah, yes, but you may have a 6 or an 8 if you had a
Industrial type development.
right or a fire flow. Typically, you wouldn't charge LUEs on a fire meter, but something may be of a bigger size. But no, it's just it's a standard table from American Water Works and just kind of fill out those values. But
it just made me think of overwhelming the system a little bit, and
right.
when I saw those large numbers and getting back to and fire was something I didn't think about because that's not going to go back into the sewer system, I assume. So if we have those high flow rates, what was the size of that holding tank again?
it's 20,000 gallons.
20,000 gallons, and I know it's kind of hard not knowing what's going on there, but you'd think that can hold a couple of months worth of?
No, not a couple of months, but yeah, at peak flow, we're talking about 800, possibly 800 homes, but 800 LUEs. But yeah, I would say at full development, maybe a couple weeks, a week, 2 weeks of holding. But the hauler will be on an on-call basis. Again, we're going to connect. We're just going to have a few customers, and then gradually adding more customers, and that flow would increase, or that the volume we'll need to manage will change over time. But so yeah, we got plenty of storage there.
But so you're not really worried about, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking about, well, what happens if we can't keep up with the
No.
contract, if we have problems?
Well-
It's not gonna be any problems getting that
No.
holding tank emptied on a
No,
regular
no,
basis.
they're set up to do it, and they can, they're, their contract would be to respond within 2 hours of a call, and we'll have alarm systems on the tank to notify the city, to make sure the people are responding, and, yeah, it's not a problem. We got plenty of capacity. We have a second tank site if we needed that, but, no, we don't anticipate needing that or at this time, so.
So if the contractor, if it fell through for whatever reason, couldn't get it, there's other ways to get the
There's
sewage
other-
out there. We'll have
other
other
ways,
pumping
yeah.
tape.
Part of the bidding process was to develop a list of potential suppliers to the city, so that we're
For
working with the
emergency
low bidder, and
purposes.
he's very qualified and has a good reputation, but we have a number of other fallback positions as well.
Will power outages hurt us? They won't come and pump out the tanks. We're gonna pump out into their trucks to haul it off, or is?
No, their trucks are self-equipped.
So they will be pulling
Yes.
it out there? Okay, I thought,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Tell them about their be odorized. Let them know that they're going to be chemically odorized too. That might be a good question.
One of the other things point out too is we're putting in a chemical system with the storage tank so that it's a biocide, basically to control odor. So if there's not biological growth, there's not an off odor, and tank will be vented, and so additional precautions to maintain the aesthetics of the area. So, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
I wanted to clarify just a couple of things that I think I heard. I want to make sure I'm hearing this properly. So for the future expansion, there's a whole bunch of possible legs off the system with a bunch of price tags on there. And I just want to make sure that I heard y'all properly, is the developers are going to bear that cost. Those costs are not going to be borne by any of the customers of the Garden Ridge water system. Is that correct?
That's correct. That would be the plan, is that they will extend service to their tracks.
Right. Just
And
want to
then-
make sure people know that their rates aren't going to go up because
No.
sewage
no.
going to some company, so.
And that's the calculation that went into calculating what the impact fee is based on a projected build out and then what those costs are. And again, trying to locate the current line in best place possible so that for ease of expansion and tying in the most customers. But yeah,
Of course.
we expect those segments, and we're starting to talk to 1 or 2 customers that would be off those line segments. And
Great, thank you. And for these forms and everything that we've been talking about tonight, is your intention to put these forms, I don't know, Ms. Kane, this might be a question for you, but I'm guessing that these things all need to go into Ordinance 54, and all this process needs to go into Ordinance 54 at some point.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. That as we perfect those and finalize the numbers, yes, that we'll update those and include them in the development package in the ordinance to be used. as
Great.
well.
Tri-Hydro is going to write all of this to put in Ordinance 54, right? That's exactly where I'm going with this. Yeah, exactly.
We're going to prepare a draft of that, and we'll run it through the city attorney, city staff.
Yeah, of course.
And get it into an ordinance form with the proper legal terms.
Just as
and
long as the
language.
commission doesn't have to figure it out. That's what I'm worried about, so
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Can I,
That's-
one last interjection would be the water that the developer has to bring to the city, the Edwards and the acre feet. That's not on the form right now. I don't know if it would appear, but to make sure that it's,
It's covered in there as an upfront cost that the developer has to bring with this service. Yes, sir.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Are there any additional questions we can pepper our engineers with while they're here? Thank you, Mr. Johnson, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we are to discussion item number 3 now, winter weather emergency financial impact. Back to the water manager, Mr. Steinmetz. Have we determined the financial impact of Winter Storm Uri?
Yes, we did go back and check the invoices and for the winter storm. Repairs were done to FM 2252 plant, chlorine plant room. That was $1,200. Repairs was done to the water plant chlorine room at municipal plant. That was another $1,200. Repairs were done to, we had to replace two 8-inch gate valves at Schoenthal plant, and that ran about $1,100. We had to get emergency supplies, which totaled up to $362. We had to keep fuel going for all the generators for the wells and actually City Hall. That totaled out to $1,700. I had to repair a blue line at 2252 plant for the turbine wells. That came to $255. Had to get some flanges for the new valves. That came to $50. Chlorine line replacement, that came to $240. And we had to buy a Weiss strainer for the Vectron piece of equipment. That came to $70. So total cost of what we could, best we could find was $6,467.
Thank you, Mr. Steinmetz, for that very thorough report on all that. And I'm glad to hear, well, 6467 was actually lower than I was expecting, so I'm glad to hear that. Are there any questions for Mr. Steinmetz on the winter weather emergency?
Yes, I'm just, that didn't include, so there were a number of leaks, customer leaks as a result of that the city, if I recall correctly, just blanket waived charging for that. So I think the cost of that water should be included in the total impact. It would have otherwise been sold.
Well, there's a leak adjustment at Tier 2 rates, so it was net zero. It didn't cost us. It wasn't a cost, actually. It was lost revenue, unless you want to call that a cost.
I don't know, well, I mean, we just basically took it and didn't count any of those leaks, so I'm not sure if we have clear breakdown of what was actual leak and what wasn't. But it may be very hard to come up with that number as you put it out. But and then what about any personnel costs that were associated with that, overtime, anything like that we had to pay?
They didn't calculate that into the factor, but I can for next meeting.
Well, I just, when we get to, I don't know that it has to be next meeting per se, but I know we're getting into the budget cycle and then look at the impact of the different things on the reserves for this year. Just want to make sure we capture all those numbers. Because we go by the baseline, we look at the rates for next year, and these are going to be like one-off, one-time things. So we want to make sure we don't overvalue one-time costs and looking at the rate forecast. So I think it would be helpful to have. I just don't know. It's probably more than just the water manager to put all that together.
We'll pull some additional information together for you for next meeting. To include the employee time and see what we can come up with on the lost revenue side, in addition to the information that Mr. Steinmetz gave.
Thank you.
Well, while we're at it, I think it would be probably a good time for lessons learned or projects that are needed in the future for the water distribution system, storage, pumpage. I know there are some things that Jacob, the last water manager, talked about as far as some valves that really could be moved indoors under cover, and they had some issues with thawing certain equipment. So hardening the equipment and looking forward to the future, and while it's fresh in everybody's mind, make a list of potential projects.
And to your point there, Dr. Carmichael, that's what we were trying to do in that strategic planning contingency plans subgroup, which I think you're on, actually, right? did we miss any questions about the winter weather emergency on the right? Thank you, Mr. Steinmetz. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay, next item, item 4, items applicable to the Water Commission discussed at the May City Council meeting. At the May City Council meeting, the City Council reviewed one leak adjustment that was held over from the February meeting. The leak adjustment was granted for 8289 Eskimo Forest for the amount of $1,839.72, which was the Water Commission's recommendation to City Council. There were also 2 thank yous to water operator Mr. Dwayne Scogino. Did I say that right? Scogino. But there are 2 very nice letters that were written for him, thanking him for a job well done. And they read those out loud at the City Council meeting. They also approved the creation of an administration assistant. Why is that important to us? That part of that, the cost of that will be paid by the Water Department operating funds. You can see the City Council meeting video for the details on that. But it is not a large amount to the recurring budget for the Water Department. Yes, there's some things mentioned by the city engineer. I think he covered all of that. One thing that also of importance to the Water Commission for the ordinance subcommittee, the new planning and zoning ordinance was approved. And of course, the ordinance 54 subcommittee is going to have to look at that to see what's in there. Okay.
I think I did too.
Anything to add from the city administrator that I missed on the City Council meeting?
Actually, the zoning ordinance was not approved. They are closer to getting it to the point where it can go through the approval process.
I thought that was the big hurrah from Dr. Miller that he said it was, I guess he said it was complete, not approved, huh? Okay. My mistake.
It's ready to move forward.
Okay. Mayor Erickson, anything that I missed from the City Council meeting or anything else to add? Okay. Mr. Steinmetz, did I miss anything that you'd like to add from the City Council meeting? Thank you. All right, commissioners, any questions on the right? On the left? All right. Move it. All right, we are to recommendations for the Water Commission. I'd like to remind everybody that by law, the Water Commission does not have the authority to grant any financial credits. The Water Commission can only make recommendations to either the city administrator to take action for credits up to $500 or the City Council to take action for credits over $500. We'll follow the same process as previous meetings, and we have one water leak adjustment to review and make recommendations on tonight. So the first one is a request for a water leak adjustment for 19204 FM 2252 for the billing period of February 22nd, 2021 to March 23rd, 2021. Mr. Steinmetz, would you please tell us about the request, what you found, and your recommendations?
Yes, this is the Covenant Baptist Church on FM 2252. I talked with the maintenance person that handles that property, and he was letting me know that the email that the AMI system sent the leak adjustment to is not monitored frequently, and that since no one's actually there for services due to COVID, there's not a whole lot of activity. Nobody's really going up there. That's why they couldn't catch the leak on time. Prior to the leak, they had 0 activity, and after the leak was fixed, they had 0 activity. I recommend that they get a leak adjustment.
And what's the recommendation there?
For a credit of $994. They pay $581.95.
You can see there, the leak was out to 95,000 gallons and 120,000 in the water bill, 95,000 of that for the leak adjustment above the tier 2 rates. And that led to a credit of $994. Did I get all that right?
Yes.
Great. All right. To summarize for everybody, also this leak was actually discovered by the AMI system, but the delay was just due to no one being at the church and catching the message. But once they caught it, they got it promptly repaired, I would say. So with all that being said, questions on the right?
Don't have my calculator here, assuming the 994 is correctly calculated. Has it been verified?
Yes.
I'm getting an audience. My calculator's out in the audience, and I'm just kidding. That's the only question I have. It looks pretty straightforward to me.
Yeah, I just want to point out how great that metering system is. This would have been a huge, huge leak if they'd not gotten that notice or whatever, and it was solved within a few hours, and especially that first hour of the burst. My only other question on that is when I look at let me get back to whoever fixed it, said it was broken at the meter. So we dug up the area and found broken 2-inch PVC coupling apparently at the meter. And I realized that was probably at the meter or on the customer side, so it was calculating all that water flow. But I'll have to admit that kind of makes me a little concerned because these are brand new meters being put in that, you know, that I guess technically on the other side of the meter, but if it was it at the actual meter connection where the meter tied in? The report says found a leak at the meter.
I believe it was the pressure reducing valve they had. If you can see, I don't know if there's a colored picture.
I just, when I read that report, it just said we found a leak at the meter, and I was concerned that it was the connection on the other side of the meter, the way it was just installed. But if it was downstream of that, then
Yeah, because the 2-inch meter is going to have a pretty sturdy flange tied to it for the customer side, so it was highly doubtful. Usually when there's a flanged meter, there's a leak at the gasket, but never a total blowout.
what did we lose, about 34,000 gallons that first hour? But if it wasn't at the meter or just on that direct other side of the connection, I'm not concerned at all, but.
Well, it looked like when you look at the data, it started out very slow and then all of a sudden just started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then it was just a total burst.
That was my only concern, but clearly this was a leak, and the metering system did a fantastic job, and that would have been a huge, huge amount of money if they weren't there and the thing didn't alert, so that's a good sign for our system.
On the left?
Question on the small leak started on March 2nd, got bigger on the 4th, it leaked thick. You got a 6-day window. I understand no one was at the church, but is there any type of safeguard or backup for notifying the customer, notify someone, maybe someone should go out there?
Not that I know of, not quite yet. I'm actually still getting familiar with the AMI.
System's fine, but but if no one's at the other end to receive the message, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I don't know if they received any phone calls or not. All I know is the emailed notifications.
Other questions?
Yeah, more of a comment, because I went through the minutes and we had a discussion about the leak detection ordinance in October last year, about then. And one of them was, no leak adjustment will be made if reasonable indications of a leak existed or customer was notified, and if premises are left abandoned for more than 14 days. Now, I know that's not in the ordinance at this time, but I echo your concern, because if we have a leak of this magnitude, and it did go on for quite a while before someone finally got the word. So somewhere in our AMI system, or somewhere in the notification into that, it needs to be made clear to the property owner that the emergency or the contact information they give be somebody who can actually be contacted. And as far as the premises left abandoned for more than 14 days, there is a form when you go on vacation for any length of time, you can file with the Garden Ridge Police Department that says, hey, I'm going to be gone, and that should probably be on that form somewhere, so that if there's a leak at that address, we know the people out of town. And that should be advertised. That's more education, isn't it? I got to stop talking like this. But, yes?
The customer is asked how they want to be notified. They can give you phone number, they can give you email, they can give you both. This particular customer chose only the email and provided that be the only means by which they be contacted.
Right.
So they did not receive a phone call, they only received the emails. And unfortunately, they were emails that were not checked very frequently.
No, I've read all that, and I'm not speaking for or against the adjustment, but I'm saying when we do look at the leak adjustment policy, that needs to be clarified, and it needs to be put somewhere in the policy that says if you do give a contact, that it better be a good contact, because if there's a leak and you don't haven't given the good contact information and aren't notified, that the leak's on you. I don't want to be hard about it, but we have a wonderful new system, and it does work, because I was notified. The deer turned my hose on again and left it running overnight. So, did work. I went out and turned the hose off, dang deer. But that needs to be tightened up, I think. I don't know who's on that one.
I would like to add to what you're saying. Great point. But I do notice here the alerts were not sent out until the 4th at about, what is that? Excuse me, on the am I looking at that right? 03, 04, 04, 05. When was that first alert sent out? 03, 04?
You are correct. It was first sent out on the 4th of March, and then the next one was sent out on the 5th of April, a month apart.
So when we're looking at this right here, we're looking at the month of March there, when that big leak came. So it was and it jumps, it's funny, it jumps from 03, 04, 21 to 03, 10, 20. Am I looking at this wrong here? Am I looking at the dates are confusing me on here. It looks like it goes from the 4th to the 10th, where all that 86,000 gallons was. There's a big 6-day gap between there.
Yes, there are missing reads between the 4th to the 10th. That is because the reads were not sent properly to the antenna that we have for the AMI system. So therefore, we were not able to gather that data through a Reading Manager or through the customer portal. So that is why on the right-hand side, it says there's the third box down, it says there's no reading.
Oh, okay.
And we calculated out an average of what we thought what the water usage was during that time period.
when I first scanned through it, I thought we lost 86,000 gallons in an hour, and I'm like, so now I see that gap, and I guess, I'm sorry, I didn't read those notes there, so, how many gallons would that average over that amount of days? That's 6 days, so, oh, okay, you've already done the work, so it's 459 gallons an hour, but, so they weren't given the notice until the 4th, because of the antenna issue, right?
So the way the system is set up to send out leak alerts is that there has to be continuous usage for over a 24-hour period before a notification is sent to the customer. And as you can see, the water usage started on the 3rd of March, and it went continuously until the 4th, which is when the system activated the leak alert to be sent out on the 4th. And then we have that almost week of missing data, which is where there was almost 460 gallons going per hour. And then obviously that's when the leak was much larger, and it bumped up to doing almost 4,000 gallons every hour until the customer actually took care of the situation.
And I remember a lot of discussion talking about, well, even if the customer's not that heavily involved with setting up their parameters and checking emails, that, like you said, we were gonna get the alerts here back, and we could take action here. So I'm a little confused on that. My thought was, well, the customer doesn't have to be that terribly involved, and they should be, but if they're not, we're gonna, and I know this is new, and I'm not pointing fingers by any stretch. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to understand a little better.
So internally, the process is we review the leak alerts that get sent out, and if we see that a notification was sent to the customer, then we do not do a follow-up. We look for the leaks that have been identified and no notification has been sent out, and that is when we reach out as a city to make contact with the customer.
I apologize, because I thought it was kind of, we could take action if they're out of town or whatever, so my misunderstanding.
If we do happen to notice that the leak continues on for several days and nothing is done, that's when the city steps in to make contact with the customer ourselves, instead of waiting for the AMI system to send out another notification.
So again, all that is based on whatever parameters they've set up online. If they didn't set up the parameters, then we're, sorry, I just had a different.
No. So the customer can set up their own parameters, but for the city notifications that we receive, it is what we have set as a standard, which I believe was only a 1%. So if you have an increase of more than 1% on a leak, we get notified. The customer does not necessarily get notified.
Okay, and so it was the customer that saw, oh, wow, we did get the alarm when it sent it out on the 4th, and that's when everything kind of snowballed then. I'm sorry, I'm confused on this a little bit, but I think it shows that it did work very well, but we're just getting used to the new system, and I had some misunderstandings of it, but no, that's all I got. Thank you.
I just don't want you to be confused about the notifications being sent out a month apart. This leak adjustment is for the leak that occurred in March, because they did have another leak that occurred in April. But, and that's what that second notification is for. And that's what this graph is showing you. This is the leak that occurred in April, but that's not the one that we are looking at today. The only one we're looking at today is the one that occurred in March.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any more further questions on this leak adjustment recommendation? Any motions?
I make a motion to forward to City Council the credit of $994, because it was clearly a leak, and, you know, and Dr. Carmichael brought up a lot of good points, but, I think with the timing of the way the alerts were sent out and everything, and we do, like you had mentioned, maybe need to clarify the rules a little bit better on situations like this. But right now, I think I make a motion, we send it to City Council for the $994 credit to the account.
Okay, we have a motion to forward to City Council a recommendation for a credit of $994. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right, we're to item number 2 in this section, Water Commissioner activities and projects. In your packet, you had a list of the projects that was updated from the last meeting. I had some inputs from Commissioner Harshberger and from Commissioner Carmichael that were not discussed at the meeting in there, and I think I captured everything properly. Oh, Commissioner Carmichael, I left you off the hook. I did not put you on contingency plans yet. That actually is still open. So as we look through here, there is one spot that was still open on contingency plans and failure modes, the strategic planning that we're going to do. So I hope everyone took a look at this before and would like to know if there's any corrections. First of all, for any of the projects for 2021. On the left? No corrections on the right? Okay, so that all looks good. Do we have anyone that would like to volunteer for the strategic planning, contingency plans, and failure modes?
I'll go ahead.
Wait, we had somebody. Thank you. Commissioner Stone volunteered for that. Thank you, Commissioner Stone, and thank you all your commissioners for volunteering for all these. We know these projects are very important, and we will actually go through a few of these. I'll just roll down the whole list and see if there's any updates from the last month as we go through here. So for infrastructure, health, and maintenance, we have identified equipment upgrade needs. Has there been any movement on that? George?
There's not been any updates since Jacob's departure, so we need to re-engage on that when it kind of settles down here a little bit. And in particular, what I'll be following up on is the water master plan, because I haven't heard any updates on that in 6 months now. So no word yet, but we'll be coming shortly, I hope.
Thank you. I think for the wastewater project, we got a fairly good update from the engineers. Dr. Carmichael, is there anything else that you would like to bring up about that as we go forward?
Not at this time.
Sorry, I was looking at my notes for a moment there. I took a note on that. We'll come back to that. Maintenance and inspection schedule.
No, sir, I'd like to echo what Commissioner Harshberger said about, with the changing over of the water manager and re-engaging with that.
Thank you. For ordinances, we don't have anything on ordinance 159. That's still waiting on updated ordinance 54, I believe. Ordinance 54, we did have a most recent update that we forwarded to the city staff for review, and we're going to continue to look at that. And we also have the task we can get a copy of planning and zoning to look at that. But we're getting to the point now on ordinance 54 that we really need help from the city staff to start reviewing it. We're almost, I'm not sure what more the commissioners can do on that, so thank you. All right. Education, develop an education plan. Commissioner Beard or Commissioner Carmichael?
Yes, I was wondering if there's any more literature or documentation about the AMI system, so we can compare it to the pamphlet to see if the critical information from whatever literature is there is transferred, is there for the customer in the pamphlet.
Okay.
Can anyone on the staff answer that question? Because I can't.
We do have some additional literature that the contractor provided us with, and I'd be more than happy to email you that information so you have it on hand. Yes, sir.
Anything else? Thank you. All right, for water rates, the review for 2022, I think we're still a little bit further out for that. I see some nodding, great. And then documenting the water rate review process.
So your notes from last week said there's a draft available. I'd love to see it. I'm not sure where it's at.
I'm sorry, the draft.
Yeah. If our councilman can maybe forward his draft, that would be appreciated. Sorry. I was trying not to do it. And just do it.
In the water rate deep dive, I assume that is going to be with the water rate review for 2022 coming up in a few months.
Yeah, we need to start it fairly soon because it should inform doing that process. The last I heard was with Jacob, and there was some issues about funding. Like some of it might have some cost associated with it. And I haven't looked at anything since then, so I'll re-engage.
Thank you. All right, for source and supply management, we have examined the sources and effective and efficient management plan. We've sort of lumped those two together in the past. Dr. Carmichael or Commissioner Haltman, would you like to, either one of y'all like to take one of those? Anything new or no updates?
No updates.
No updates.
Thank you. And no updates on examining the demand at this time. All right, for the budget input, I know we are going to start that, I think, next month. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, the contingency plans, failure modes. We have some notes that we took from earlier, talking about Winter Storm Uri, that we can start working into that and start some work on that strategic plan also. Is there anything I missed for projects? Anything else that anyone would like to bring up, starting on the right?
No, I don't see anything else.
Left? Thank you. Okay, we are to item 3, ordinance 210. So are there any additional discussion items on ordinance 210 that we need to address? Starting on the right.
No, sir.
Left? Nothing. All right, item D now, future agenda items. Do we have any commissioner input on future agenda items? Starting on the left.
Would it be appropriate to have them look into why this screen isn't blinking off and on all night? Yeah, all of these.
Yeah, most of them are dead up here.
Yeah.
Oh, are they really? Okay. We'll go ahead and get that looked at.
Thank you. Not as a future agenda item, but.
On the right? Okay. We are on item number 6, citizen comment period. Guessing that we do not have any citizens wishing to speak since we don't have any in the audience. All right. Everything okay? Okay, that concludes all the items on the agenda. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. The meeting is adjourned at... All in favor? Sorry. Opposed? Thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 7:09.